Welcome to Raccoon City. You're already dead. What's up, everyone? This is Resident Lynx, and today we're crawling back into the rotten, blood-soaked corpse of Raccoon City to talk about one of the most important horror games ever made. Not the remake, not the shiny modern version with over-the-shoulder aiming and photorealistic sweat pores. I'm talking about the original Resident Evil 2, released in 1998, back when survival horror didn't give a shit if you were comfortable, prepared, or emotionally stable. This game didn't want you to feel powerful. It wanted you scared, under-equipped, and constantly one bad decision away from being torn apart by a low-poly corpse with commitment issues. So if you like dark retrospectives, brutal honesty, and horror games that don't hold your hand, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's descend into hell together. Context: why Resident Evil 2 hit like a fucking truck. By 1998, the original Resident Evil had already scared the piss out of players with the Spencer Mansion. Zombies were slow, ammo was limited, and opening doors felt like gambling with your life. But Capcom didn't just want to make another mansion game. They wanted scale. They wanted chaos. They wanted to show what happens when the nightmare doesn't stay contained. Resident Evil 2 said, what if the virus didn't stay in one creepy house? What if it swallowed an entire city? And holy shit did they commit. The opening. The world is already fucked. Resident Evil 2 doesn't easy win. There's no tutorial zone, no friendly NPC walking you through controls. You load in and immediately the city is burning. People are screaming, zombies are everywhere, and you're fucked. You choose between Leon Kemp's S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield, and both of them arrive in Raccoon City thinking they're stepping into a normal situation. They're wrong. So fucking wrong. Leon is a rookie cop on his first day. Claire is just trying to find her brother. Neither of them signed up for cannibal corpses, bioweapons, or a police station designed by a lunatic architect with a fetish for puzzles. And that innocence matters because the game is about watching it get destroyed. Raccoon City, a dead place that still screams. Raccoon City feels dead, but not empty. That's the key difference. You see wrecked cars, blood trails, boarded up shops, notes from civilians who didn't make it. Every background tells you the same story. People tried to survive and they fucking failed. This city isn't just a setting, it's a mass grave. And unlike modern games that shove lore down your throat, Resident Evil 2 lets you discover how bad things got by piecing it together yourself. Every alleyway feels like something awful happened 5 minutes before you arrived. The RPD, a police station designed by Satan. Let's talk about the Raccoon City Police Department, because this place is legendary and completely insane. First off, who the hell designs a police station like this? You've got art galleries, hidden passages, giant statues, puzzle doors, and keys shaped like playing cards. This is not a police station. This is a gothic nightmare pretending to be one. But here's the genius part. It works. The RPD becomes a labyrinth of fear. You're constantly looping back through familiar hallways, except now you're low on ammo, you're injured, and there are more things trying to kill you. That sense of dread doesn't come from jump scares, it comes from memory. You remember where the danger is, and that makes it worse. Fixed camera angles. Hate them or fear them? People love to bitch about fixed camera angles, but in Resident Evil 2, they're not a limitation, they're a weapon. You don't see what's ahead, you hear it first. A zombie groans off screen, you step forward, suddenly it's right there. The game controls what you see, and that means it controls what you don't see. That uncertainty is terrifying. Modern horror games give you full control. Resident Evil 2 says, nope, you're going to walk into this blind and deal with whatever's waiting. Tank controls, clunky on purpose. Yeah, the controls feel stiff. That's the point. You're not an action hero. You're not trained for this shit. Turning around takes time. Aiming takes effort. Running past enemies is risky. Every movement feels deliberate, and that forces you to think instead of react. You're constantly asking yourself, do I fight, do I run, or do I save ammo and pray? Most of the time, prayer doesn't help. Ammo scarcity. Every bullet is a moral decision. Resident Evil 2 doesn't drown you in bullets, it starves you. You find just enough ammo to survive, not enough to feel safe. Do you kill that zombie now or leave it and hope it doesn't fuck you later? Spoiler, it probably will. Zombies don't always die when you think they're dead. They get back up, they grab you, they waste your resources. And when you run out of ammo, the game doesn't pity you, it punishes you. Save rooms. False safety in a broken world. Ah yes, the save room. Soft lighting, calm music, temporary peace. These rooms are sacred. They're the only places in the game where the world stops trying to kill you. But even here, there's tension, because saving costs ink ribbons. So now you're not just managing health and ammo, you're managing progress. Do you save now or risk losing everything if you die? Every save is a gamble. Zombies. Slow, stupid, and fucking terrifying. Resident Evil 2 zombies aren't fast. They don't need to be. They shamble towards you with intent, soak up bullets, and punish mistakes. Headshots aren't guaranteed. Sometimes they drop, sometimes they don't. That randomness makes them scary. You never feel fully in control. Lickers. Pure fucking nightmare fuel. Then you meet the Lickers, skinless, upside down, crawling on ceilings like Satan's pet lizard. The first time you see one, you panic. The first time you hear one, you freeze. Because you learn something important. Sound matters. Run too fast, they hear you. Shoot, they hear you. They punish panic. And that's genius game design. Tone. Bleak, hopeless, and unforgiving. Resident Evil 2 is not heroic. It's grim. Most people you read about are dead. Most survivors you meet don't make it. Umbrella doesn't get punished. Not really. This is a story about corporate evil, human arrogance, and the cost of experimentation. And the game doesn't offer easy answers or happy endings. It just asks, how long can you survive? Mr. X, the game decides you're not safe anymore. Let's talk about the moment Resident Evil 2 fundamentally changes. You hear heavy footsteps, not zombie shuffling, not claws scraping, just slow, deliberate boots hitting the floor. And then he shows up, the tyrant, Mr. X, the fedora-wearing embodiment of "you're fucked." Up until this point, Resident Evil 2 is about careful exploration, planning routes, managing threats. Mr. X says, nope, now you move. This motherfucker doesn't sprint you, he hunts you. He doesn't panic, he just walks towards you like he knows you'll fuck up eventually. And 9 times out of 10, you do. Why Mr. X works so damn well? Mr. X isn't scary because he looks cool. He's scary because he breaks your routine. He destroys your safe paths. He forces mistakes. That hallway you used a dozen times, now it's a death trap. That puzzle room you felt safe in, now it's a panic room. And the worst part is, you can't really kill him. You can slow him down, but he always comes back. He's not there to be beaten. He's there to wear you down. Mentally, emotionally, resource-wise. He turns the RPD into a project board. The sound design. Fear you can hear. Resident Evil 2 understands something a lot of modern horror games still screw up. Fear starts with sound. You hear Mr. X before you see him. You hear zombies behind walls. You hear Lickers breathing above you. Sometimes you hear nothing at all. That silence? That's worse. The game weaponizes your imagination. You're constantly listening, anticipating, bracing for impact. Headphones turn this game into psychological warfare. Ada Wong. Lies, bullets, and bad decisions. Let's talk about Ada Wong because this character changed Resident Evil forever. She shows up mysterious, confident, and immediately suspicious. She's not a helpless damsel, she's not honest, and she's definitely not telling Leon the whole truth. Ada represents something new for the series: moral ambiguity, betrayal, personal agendas. Leon wants to save people, Ada wants information, and watching Leon slowly realize that maybe, just maybe, he's being played, that shit hits harder than you'd expect for a 1998 game with polygon faces. Ada isn't evil, she's worse. She's practical. Claire and Sherry, the heart of the game. While Leon gets tangled up in conspiracies and femme fatales, Claire's story hits different. Claire's motivation is simple: protect Sherry Birkin. Sherry isn't a badass, she's not a fighter. She's a terrified kid caught in a nightmare created by adults who didn't give a shit about consequences. Claire becomes a protector, not because she's trained, but because someone has to step up. That emotional anchor grounds the horror. You're not just surviving for yourself anymore, you're surviving for someone else, and that adds weight to every decision. William Birkin, body horror done right. Now let's talk about William Birkin, because this man turns into one of the most disturbing boss progressions in gaming history. Birkin isn't just a monster, he's a mistake that keeps mutating. Each form is less human, more violent, more ugly, confusing, claustrophobic, miserable. The enemies are worse, the environments are grosser, the resources are tighter. This is the part of the game where players either adapt or break. You're tired, you're low on ammo, and the game knows it. The sewers feel like the world beneath the world, the rot under the city's skin. Puzzles. Think or die. Resident Evil 2 puzzles aren't just there to slow you down. They force you to backtrack, risk encounters, memorize layouts. Solving a puzzle doesn't feel like a reward, it feels like permission to keep going. And sometimes that permission costs blood. The lab. The truth comes out. Finally, you reach the Umbrella Laboratory. This is where everything clicks. Clean white hallways, cold machinery, clinical design. This is the birthplace of the nightmare. The contrast between the lab and the rest of the game is intentional. This horror wasn't chaotic. It was planned, designed, approved. And suddenly, the zombies, the city, the deaths, they all make sickening sense. Endings. Survival is not victory. Resident Evil 2 doesn't give you a happy ending, it gives you escape. You don't fix Raccoon City, you don't stop Umbrella, you just get out alive if you're lucky. That's survival horror. Not triumph, not closure, just living long enough to tell the story. Why Resident Evil 2 still fucking matters. This game didn't age perfectly, but its design philosophy is timeless. It trusts the player, it respects fear, it doesn't dilute its tone. Resident Evil 2 understands that horror isn't about power, it's about vulnerability. And that's why it still hits. No clean endings, just survivors and corpses. By the time you're limping through the lab, fingers hovering over the D-pad, ammo count looking like a fucking joke, Resident Evil 2 has made something very clear. You are not here to win. You are here to escape. And that's the biggest difference between Resident Evil 2 and most horror games that came after it. There's no triumphant music swell, no heroic final stand where everything feels justified. You don't save the city, you don't stop Umbrella, you don't undo the damage. You just get the hell out before the entire place nukes itself off the map. And honestly, that's more honest than most games have the balls to be. The final stretch. Pure panic design. The endgame of Resident Evil 2 is cruel in the best way. You're asked to fight multiple boss encounters, navigate tight corridors, manage dwindling resources, and make split-second decisions while exhausted. And that exhaustion is real, not character exhaustion, player exhaustion. You've been tense for hours. You've memorized routes, you've made mistakes and paid for them. Your hands are sweaty, your brain is fried. And then the game throws one last fuck you your way. Final Birkin. When horror stops being human. William Birkin's final forms aren't just boss fights, they're grotesque punctuation marks at the end of a sentence written in blood. By this point, he's barely recognizable as a man. He's just rage, teeth, and claws. And the fights aren't elegant, they're messy, they're desperate. You're not dodging like a pro, you're unloading everything you have and praying it's enough. This isn't a duel, it's extermination. And even when he finally goes down, there's no satisfaction, just relief. The self-destruct, run or die. Then comes the countdown. The lab is exploding, alarms blare, the music ramps up. This is the game screaming, move your ass. You sprint through hallways you barely survived earlier, enemies pop up where you least want them. One mistake could mean reloading a save from half an hour ago. This is Resident Evil 2 at its most sadistic and most thrilling. When you finally escape, heart pounding, controller shaking in your hands, you don't feel like a hero, you feel like someone who barely made it. And that's perfect. The endings. Escape is the reward. Resident Evil 2 has multiple endings depending on which character you played first, how well you did, who survived. And none of them are fairy tales. Umbrella still exists. Raccoon City is still doomed. The truth is buried under fire and radiation. Leon, Claire, Sherry, Ada, if they survive, it's not because the world became kinder, it's because they endured. Why this game fucked up a generation? In a good way. Resident Evil 2 hit players at the perfect moment. Late 90s, pre-internet spoilers, no guides unless you bought a magazine or suffered through trial and error. People didn't just play this game, they lived with it. They talked about it at school, they swapped tips, they warned friends about liquors, they argued about Leon versus Claire. This game didn't just scare you, it stayed with you. Design philosophy. Why it still works. Resident Evil 2 understands three critical things. 1. Fear comes from limitation. Limited ammo, limited saves, limited vision. The game constantly reminds you that you're fragile. 2. Atmosphere beats gore. The game doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. It builds dread through pacing, sound, and environment. 3. Trust the player. The game never over-explains. It lets you figure things out and punishes you when you don't. Modern games could still learn from this shit. Why the remake exists at all. Let's be real for a second. Resident Evil 2 2019 exists because the original was untouchable. Capcom didn't remake it because they needed to, they remade it because they had to prove they could do it justice. And while the remake is incredible in its own right, it's built on the bones of something already legendary. Without the original, no modern survival horror revival, no confidence in slower, atmospheric design, no proof that fear sells. The original walked so the remake could sprint. The legacy, a pillar of horror gaming. Resident Evil 2 is not just a great sequel, it's a blueprint, a warning, a benchmark. It showed developers that horror could be smart, replayable, emotionally grounded. It shaped franchises, it inspired imitators, and it scared the shit out of millions of players. That's legacy. The dark truth. This game doesn't care if you're having fun. It wants you nervous. It wants you unsure. It wants you stressed. It treats survival as something earned, not gifted. And that's why it still feels powerful decades later. Final verdict. A fucking masterpiece. Resident Evil 2, 1998, is terrifying, smart, relentless, influential as hell. Is it perfect? No, but its flaws are part of its identity. This game didn't age gracefully, it aged honestly, and that's rare. Rating, Resident Lynx style. Resident Evil 2, 1998, 5 out of 5 broken typewriters. A survival horror classic that doesn't flinch, doesn't apologize, and doesn't forget what it is. Final words from Resident Lynx. If you made it through this entire retrospective, I appreciate the hell out of you.
If this was your first Resident Evil game, welcome to the nightmare. If you played it back in the day, you already know why it matters. Drop a comment telling me when you first played it, Leon or Claire, and whether Mr. X scared the absolute shit out of you. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel more than you think. This has been Resident Lynx. And remember, in Raccoon City, survival isn't heroic. It's just temporary.